Thanks, Chair. Ms. Hogan, thank you to you and your team for putting this report together. Once again, we're here. We're here talking about another sad example of Liberal waste and abuse of taxpayer money and pure government incompetence, just like what we saw with CERB and again with Arrive Scam. This time it's $3.5 billion of CEBA loans that went to ineligible recipients. Ms. Hogan, is this incompetence not due to lack of proper oversight and of a lack of safeguards with taxpayers' money?
I think the first thing I would want to point out about the Canada Emergency Business Account was the speed at which $49 billion of loans went out to businesses, waiting less than a month. Is very quick. But the rollout of this program did have some questionable elements when it came to contract management by Export Development Canada. So while 91% of loans went to eligible businesses, we did identify that $3.5 billion went to ineligible businesses. Export Development Canada has already started to recover some of those, but I am concerned that they have partially disagreed or partially accepted our recommendation about following up, and this concern, this lack of following up concerns me.
Was this not because of a lack of safeguards?
Well, issuing loans to ineligible recipients is about having payment controls. So with most COVID programs, this one too had limited prepayment controls.
Right.
While there were some validation checks, loans did go out to ineligible businesses. What we did see EDC do, however, was adjust at the beginning and start doing post-payment work, which was different compared to other COVID programs.
Sorry, I just have a limited amount of time, so I have to move on. So we know that Accenture was given, once again, by the Liberals, a sole source contract. This is a multinational corporation that was awarded a sole source contract. Almost 92% of contracts went to them to once again cover up the incompetence of the ministers on the Liberal side. This company took Canadians to the cleaners, and that almost $300 million plus went to Accenture, but what did Canadians get for that? Does it not say that giving this sole source contract to Accenture means that this government had bungled the program?
So this is a different program than other COVID programs. We actually here saw Crown Corporation delivering a program that normally we would have expected to see delivered from the public service. Because of that, I would have expected better oversight by the Department of Finance and Global Affairs, and they really did fail in their responsibilities to exercise oversight over that Crown. What the EDC decided to issue non-competitive contracts to Accenture. I'm concerned about the over-reliance that they have put on this one single vendor.
Right.
And the lack of oversight by departments is such that bad decisions are not being questioned, and I would have expected better from the use of public funds.
You said in previous reports that the government can't use COVID as an excuse for this kind of incompetence. Is this not another example of that happening again?
I would expect a basic level of due diligence and monitoring regardless of the situation. And here what we saw was a poor contract management from Export Development Canada and lack of oversight by federal departments of a Crown Corporation administering a significant COVID support program.
Thank you. Mr. McCauley, I understand you're going to pick it up from here. You've got 2 minutes and 15 seconds. Floor is yours.
A.J. Hogan, thanks very much. Just quickly, on the public accounts, last Wednesday in Senate Finance, a senior TBS official said, and I quote, "The public accounts have been transmitted to the AG." Do you have the final version of the public accounts yet?
I expect to receive the final version of the financial statements today. That was what I was informed of at the end of last week.
So they did not, as TBS said, send you the public accounts for final sign-off?
We don't have the final statements. Our audit is ongoing, and obviously we work with different versions, but we don't have the final.
Treasury Board would actually state that publicly. But thanks for your work on the CEBA. You know, we've spent a lot of time on ArriveCan. I thought just when you can't get a worse report than ArriveCan, along comes EDC saying, "Hold my beer." There's a line from your report that says Accenture was involved in proposing solutions to implementing program changes, determining contract scope and prices. with little challenge from EDC. Can you expand on that? Like, this seems very much like GC Strategies being involved in setting up RFPs that only they could win.
So these contracts were all issued in a non-competitive fashion to Accenture. We did conclude that EDC handed over too much control to this vendor.
Did they violate procurement rules by allowing Accenture to basically choose themselves for subcontracting?
So the Crown Corporation isn't subject to the government's procurement rules. They have their own set of rules.
But that doesn't allow them to throw away taxpayers' money by giving business to themselves, setting their own prices.
I agree. There was an over-reliance here on hourly-based contracts, which is not what you would typically see in the public service. Having fixed price is the better approach to ensure better value for money. EDC here handed over too much control in those hourly contracts, saying, help us with the scope and how much will this cost, when I would have expected much better from the public service when it comes to managing a contract.
I would have expected the public service not to give a contract to Accenture and tell them you can take taxpayers' money and hire your own self and set your own prices and decide how much taxpayers would pay for those services. Would you not?
You're highlighting a process where Accenture, or where EDC and Finance and Global Affairs had identified the need to move to a competitive process because they were concerned about the over-reliance on Accenture. EDC, however, turned to Accenture and asked them to run a mini competitive process to find a vendor to develop a loan accounting software. In the end, what happened is that a recommendation was made to provide the work to a wholly owned subsidiary of Accenture. So in effect, they ran a competition and then received the contract, and that is unacceptable.
It sounds like
in the
fraud.
public
Mr.
service.
McCauley,
It sounds like fraud.
Mr. McCauley, we are well over our time. I'm moving on to Mr. Erskine Smith, please.